President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya has signed 5 parliamentary bills into law. The supplementary budget now unlocks about 139 billion shillings for use in fuel stabilization, drought-related interventions, security operations, election preparedness, and settlement of pending bills. Churchill Ogutu, who's an economist at IC Asset Managers, joins us from Kenya to talk more about the supplementary bill. Churchill, good afternoon. Good to have you again, my friend. What do you make of this supplementary budget that's been signed into law?
Thank you, Rotas. The supplementary was long overdue. It was tabled earlier on this year, and it realized $1.3 billion, at least to the economy, as additional budget allocation. So it's being targeted to go to some various sectors of the economy, and more importantly is now what you mentioned earlier on, part of it is now to going towards the fuel subsidy program. So it's going to at least ensure that the fuel crisis more or less abates in the coming days, and also some settling the pending bills. Pending bills, the number we have, at least as at end of last year, was around $3.4 billion. So a significant chunk of the supplementary budgetary allocation will go towards settling some of the long-standing pending bills.
And how will this be paid for, Churchill? There's been so much talk about Kenya's debts. How's all this going to be paid for?
It will be partly met by additional revenue. Based on what the authorities mentioned, there will be an increase of $250 million in the ordinary revenue in this current financial year. And then the other bit of it will now be additional financing. At least from the National Treasury, they stated that some of the external financing will be from external donors on concessional terms. We already seen World Bank coming in, and also there will be some additional monies, even from the Eurobond, which is expected to be issued later on this quarter. So that will go towards funding this supplementary budget that you saw signed into law.
Excellent stuff. I want to take a look at Kenya still on debts. I guess the debt picture, if we can take a look at, I guess, the sections of debt. Is the debt picture alarming to you, Churchill? As far as, yeah, there we go. Composition of Kenya's government debt, a huge portion of that, banking institutions, and then I guess pension funds and so on and so forth. As far as this is domestic debt. We haven't even gotten into foreign debt yet. But is the debt picture alarming?
Yeah, it's quite alarming. As at the end of December, it was $82 billion. We have a public debt limit at $90 billion. So we are just within that, crossing that limit. But and in terms of public debt to GDP, that's around 68% ratio. That's quite elevated. The debt servicing of interest, the interest payment, and also the repayment of debt maturities, that is comprising around 66% of the ordinary revenue. So those metrics, public debt ratio, debt servicing to revenue ratio, is quite alarming. And even in this context, we are starting to hear proposals of now removing that public debt limit, the $90 billion, and now moving to a percentage, which is 55%. But that I still find it quite, we don't have that fiscal room to maneuver.
And the 34 billion shillings to cushion fuel costs, how far is that going to go?
Yes, the 34 billion shillings, that's around $340 million, which was part of the supplementary that was assented into law by the president. Part of it actually is fun enough because there's something called one of the articles of our constitution, 2223 states that there could be some monies that could be appropriated, but then necessitates the supplementary. So from the numbers, from what we heard from the authorities, is that $250 million already had been realized. That is between July to December last year. So even in as much as the oil marketers are expected to receive $340 million, $250 million already is for previous disbursement by National Treasury. So they'll still have something like $90 million at least to maneuver. I still feel that is a small amount to ensure that there's that to resolve the crisis that is currently playing. So let's see how things pan out, but I'm still having my reservations.
Yeah, a whole lot of people are having reservations. Another person that has reservations is Amani National Congress party leader Musalia Mudavadi. He was speaking on radio and said it beats logic why Kenya was having fuel issues, yet neighboring landlocked Uganda has fuel. How do you reason that out?
Yeah, fun enough, I think it was last year around December, Uganda also started, they had a review as to the high fuel crisis, but then it boiled down to a few supply bottlenecks, whereby because Uganda is a landlocked country, the truck drivers at the border post who are now having delays because of the COVID vaccination and all those stuff. So that led to a pileup. So it led to the increase in fuel prices. But having said that, right now, the difference between Uganda and Kenya is that unlike Kenya, whereby we have some price formula, Uganda's is a bit more market pricing, whereby the prices of fuel in Uganda more or less is correlated to what is there in the global market. But in Kenya, there's a bit of some subsidy program, this kind of some soft controls that is not there in Uganda. If you look at it from a comparative basis, a liter of fuel pre this crisis was around $1.2, and where in Kenya, whereas in Uganda it was around $1.5 to around $2. So you find that in the pricing in Uganda is more market pricing as compared to Kenya. So because of the subsidy program, which was not sustainable, that's where the crisis is in Kenya, whereas in Uganda, the flow is still continuing. So that's where the problem is. Uganda is still having their fuel, Kenya is still having issues.
Thank you for the breakdown. So you mentioned subsidies, and there's been a whole lot of talk of Kenya subsidies, subsidizing fuel, subsidizing LPG, subsidizing electricity tariffs. I mean, they're just subsidizing everything. Are elections the driving force behind these decisions to provide this raft of subsidies?
We can say partly, and more so from the context of the current regime. And from the onset of all this subsidy, which for the fuel, which kicked in last year, I found it quite unsustainable. One, because you don't have the legislative framework for the subsidy program. So at some point, the rubber will have met the road, and that's where it is. That's what is playing out currently. So I felt that ultimately this subsidy program was just a way of kicking the can down the road, to the extent that that subsidy program is supposed to come from the Petroleum Development Levy. The monies that is going there, I don't see that it's quite significant, at least to ensure a meaningful subsidy program for the fuel. So at some point, I felt that this subsidy program was just to be put in place up until elections. Elections is in 4 months' time. And then after that, the new administration coming in will now face the headache of tackling this whole subsidy program. But right now, because of the fuel crisis that has come in, so I think the current administration will either be forced to undo this whole subsidy program or find a way of tweak it to be more sustainable for the longer term.
That is the exact conversation we are having in Nigeria. I mean, there's literally no difference in what you just said with regards to what's going on here with fuel subsidies as well. What is your overview of the Kenyan economy as we begin the second quarter of 2022?
I think we are muddling through in the sense that we are still coming from COVID pandemic environment. Some of the sectors are yet to fully recover, and we are not seeing any solid strategies. We've been hearing about economic recovery strategy that has been put in place in the last 2 years, but we can't really pinpoint what has come out of that. So it's all about the numbers. I mean, the base effect, whereby even if you are looking at a 6% growth this year, it's just cosmetic, just comparing what happened last year with this year versus what happened last year. But in tangible manner, it's not being felt to the ground. I still feel that there are pressure points from the external sector, all these things that are happening, be it from the fuel crisis or the Russian Russian-Ukraine war, the negative spillover effect, we are still feeling it in Kenya from real sector. We have elections in 4 months' time. So there's that wait-and-see approach from different segments of the economy, which may not be supportive of a vibrant recovery. So I'm still quite cautious in the short term of prospects as we get into the second quarter.
Fascinating year. So much to look forward to with fuel subsidies, all these things, and see how Kenya's economy gets through it. Plus, there are elections in August, I believe. Churchill Ogutu, economist with IC Asset Managers, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.